the first one I want to talk about is school aid. We talked about how school aid is going to be, schools are going to be taken care of and so on and so forth. Well, school aid in here was $1,963,000,000 in a 2-year cycle of the legislature between 10 and 11 to help balance the budget. Now, the problem with this $1.9 billion is that the states promised to pay it back, because we're going to have a roaring economy recovering, and the taxes are going to go up, and revenue is going to go up, and the state's going to be able to pay it off. Well, that didn't happen. And this is in 08. We had the same discussion in 08. The whole budget in 08 was $1 billion in the whole, and I was saying it's 2 or 3, and when the reports came out, it was 3. Then it went to 5. Now it's 8 to 10 in the next biennium. It's growing because what we're doing is we're literally kicking the can down the road. Here's $2 billion of state aid to education that's been kicked down the road, and it's been promised to pay back. I want
to point out on this page too, you're starting to see E through 12. No longer
right, there's
K
no
through
K-12. Right,
I didn't know. 12.
Thank you. I just noticed that when you said that.
And it's incredible.
It's from birth to 12.
Yes.
They have a plan in place to include birth to 12 years old and billions of dollars of additional cost of education a year. Right, that's a good point. Now, for all you who can't read it, but you can check it on the website. Right here is the total of reductions. $2,689,000,000 in 2 years is being reduced to balance the budget. Now, what I want to talk about that is transfers. The state of Minnesota went through and, like a razor, cut off the excess balances in a lot of accounts across state government and county and other government aid. They stripped the excess money out of these accounts and managed to raise $80 million that way.
And let's talk about those accounts. Some of them were cleanup accounts. Some of them were the tobacco fund. Some of them were
waste management funds. There's a whole, and they're tucked in here in one sentence, but they're in here. But they went across the board and took out every money, whatever's money they could find. Also in here, they took out money from state government, health and human services, and tax aids and credits to businesses and organizations. That's what I want to talk about. We'll talk about later, but tax aids and credits in here, a total of $65 million for tax aids and credits to individuals and businesses. That's our money that we're rightfully have and supposed to have and get back from the state, and they postpone paying it. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's the beginning of it. Then we reductions and transfers. We talked about that a little bit there. Accelerated tax payments. Now this is a section I didn't know was in here. I don't know. Did you know this was in here? Accelerated tax payments.
I read all 202 painful pages of it.
Good for you. I'm glad you beat me on that one, Sue. I had enough just getting through what I did get through. On page 4 of our book here, this is our book. What they did is businesses and have sales and use tax that they have to pay. And depending on the organization, they pay it annually or quarterly. So the state tossed that whole idea out, and for a period of, I think it's 2 years. I have to look. I don't have time to look. I think it was 2 years. The state said, okay, no longer is it going to be quarterly or annually. It's going to be monthly. And so that's the law. But the problem is, especially in the construction industry or other businesses like Shear Brothers, for as an example, they do millions and millions of dollars in business every year, and they charge 7% sales tax or whatever the sales tax rate is. And probably 80% of their customers are credit customers. So they get a bill. Shear Brothers makes a sale January 25th, invoices on the 1st. The customer has 30 to 60 days to pay it or whatever. Meanwhile, according to this, on the 15th of February, the Shear Brothers has to pay the tax bill, even if they never collected the money yet from the customer, because the customer has 30, 60, 90 days to pay. What's even worse is the state of Minnesota and government agencies automatically have in their contract clauses, they don't have to pay for 30, 60, 90 days automatically. In the private sector, if you don't pay, the Shear Brothers can go, well, you should pay because you're supposed to pay within the first 30 days. In the government, when you're doing the government, they got an automatic pass for 30, 60, 90 days. So the vendors are automatically having to pay the taxes for organizations, just the way because the way business is done. So
an added weight onto the businesses that they just don't need during these difficult economic times.
Or any time actually. They don't need it at any time. Yeah. Now, the next one is on page 36. The state of Minnesota reduced state aid to counties by 1.18896862.7%. Now that doesn't mean that's what it says, folks. So that's any county that has a population of less than 5,000 is exempt. Well, I checked today, and there's no county in Minnesota that has less than 5,000 population. So this means all counties in Minnesota got this reduction, except, and I want to read this, the aid reduction amount is 0 for a county with a population less than 5,000, and it is 0 for any county containing, now get this, this is the clause, for a county containing the Shooting Star Casino property that was removed from tax rolls in 2009.
Where's the Shooting Star Casino located?
Who cares? But why why not all casinos? If you're going to do
Because
this
now we know who wrote the bill.
That language is in there for a reason, and it also says for all other counties, the aid reduction amount will be 1.1889. So basically, they're saying everybody's got to pay this reduction or lose this aid by 1.889%, except this one county. That violates the Constitution in other areas when it comes to taxation and taxation.
Yeah, and where's the lawsuit from the other counties and the special preference for one county?
I have no clue.
And the local government aid is an issue that I think people really have to understand, because initially local government aid was put into place to help counties who couldn't afford their police, their fire, their wastewater treatment plant, their whatever. Now it's used for everything under the sun. And I would like some county accountability, where the counties have to come in and say, where did we spend every dime of local government aid?
Correct. Right. So here's another one, property tax refunds. Now, I called my accountant to verify this, and he said yes. Up until this year, a renter would get a 19% of their rent. They paid $1,000 a month. They would get $190 considered as property taxes. They could take that $190 and apply it towards to reduce their income tax liability. Well, we temporarily reduced that from 19 to 15%. So all you renters out there, I'm telling you right now, House File 1 special session, reduced your income or increased your income tax liability by 4%. Now you might not know that, but I'm just telling you that's when all the dust settles and all the things are taken care of. You had a 4% increase, temporary increase in your income tax liability. Temporary. Well, yeah, right. That's.
Just saying.
I know, Sue. I'm not going to say it because...
I'll say it. No tax has ever been temporary.
Go ahead and say it, Sue. Number 49, retroactive reductions. Now, on page 49 in here, under Health Care Management, Subdivision 5, and there's 17 subdivisions, I believe it is in here. But under Subdivision 5, I'm going to read it to you. The general fund appropriation for the incentive program under laws 208, Chapter 358, Article 5, Section 3, Subdivision 4, Paragraph B, okay, is canceled. The paragraph is the paragraph is effective retroactively from January 1st, 2010. Now, all through here, what they did is they sat down in May of 2010 and said, we're going to take this law or this reduction or this tax or whatever it is to get this balanced budget, and we're going to make a retroactive back some places a year. Well, how would that set? Well, for you, if all of a sudden you find yourself a tax liability was 8, 9, 10 months, 12 months old. Or as a government agency, your expected revenue from the state is now retroactive back and you lose 3%. Now, that little language is tucked away all throughout this bill in different places where they said, you know what, we need to raise some money, so what we're going to do is just undo the payments we made.
What page number was that?
That's page 49 on this one. That's just one of the examples that's in there. It's tucked in there several places. Here's another one here. Effective, the additional withholding increase, paragraph F, is effective retroactively from January 1st, 2010. And this increase, they already had a 4% reduction already from previous trying to balance in the budgets in 08 and 09 to 4.5%. Now it's a 0.5%, but the fact is, here's a 0.5% that government agencies or individuals, in this case it's human services, lost another 0.5% retroactive back to 2010.
Let's point out too, as far as the Department of Health issues, Obamacare is listed in this bill 16 different times.
Yes.
16 different times.
In here under health care on page 63, which is half or 3/4 of this bill, is health care and applying universal health care to Minnesota in 2011. The commissioners shall review all ongoing studies, reports, and programs, evaluations completed with the Department of Health. In other words, the health department is going to review all their operations and report to the legislature every 5 years if there's duplication, unnecessary, or obsolete government operations. Now, that sounds good, Sue, but a company never lets their internal auditings do their final reports. They always pull an outside auditor to come in and do the reports.
For good reason.
Here we're having the Department of Health self-evaluate all its programs. Well, any drunken sailor would love that. We all come tell the drunken sailor, what's wrong with you? And they go, nothing's wrong with me. I'm fine. What's your problem? And that's what we're going to have here. And this, again, is all throughout this legislation, is allowing government agencies to do their own reviews and report to the legislature how great they're doing.
We're down to our last 5 minutes.
Yeah, right.
And
So
you
I'm
have
just gonna-
so many things in there. The premarital counseling.
Yes, I want to touch on that
I
one.
want to touch on that too, because that is a perfect example of a piece of legislation that couldn't get passed on its own during the session.
It should have never been brought up.
Right. They work on an end of the legislative session package, monster package like this
Correct.
one, and a bill that couldn't pass on its own is inserted into the language and becomes
Now,
law.
are we talking about, I want to make sure we're talking about the University of Minnesota sets up a program to help people who are having have marriage problems or whatever.
Steve Dill's bill.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And the government, who has no moral compass at all, is going to help people with moral issues in their personal spiritual lives. That ain't going to happen. But we're spending an unspecified amount of money.
Yeah, everybody who gets married has to pay a higher
And
license
this
fee.
isn't just cutting programs. There's a lot. I didn't get to them, but there's our programs in here that are all created, new programs created. Now, if we're cutting billions of dollars, why are we creating new programs with unspecified limits on them?
Supposedly we're broke, and they continue to go
To
nuts.
expand government. Every time government does something, it costs the taxpayers more money, no matter how small it is. You
Now-
don't want to you want to repeal this? Get a lawyer and sue for House File 1 because it's illegal under the Constitution and it's been held up in Minnesota courts in the past because there's multiple subjects in this bill. You want to repeal it, you don't need me. You can go down there and file a lawsuit against the state of Minnesota and repeal this legislation yourself. You just got to get yourself a lawyer that'll file it. Pony up $100 grand and go do it.
Tell us why we should vote for you.
Because I'm not going to allow stuff to get this far. This could be stopped long before this point in the process. And we need strong leaderships that are just going to say no. And people aren't going to like it. I tell everybody, I promise nobody nothing. I go out there and I tell everybody I talk to, I'm not promising anything but your liberty and money back. And a constitutional government. That's all I'm obligated to give you anyway. And that's what we're going to have. Or we're screwed. You know, we're going down over the cliff financially and economically. And the people in the street get it. They understand it.
November is coming.
November,
Congratulations.
47 days, and we're there. So get involved in our campaigns. You need to do whatever you need to do to help us win this thing and make it so blatantly like a 80-20 that nobody can argue about the fact that I'm a representative for the House of Minnesota.
Excellent.
Thank
Best of luck,
Sue.
Tim.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Sue. Have a good day.